Good afternoon, everyone. The Low Income Forum on Energy welcomes you all to the LIFE Monthly Webinar Series. As you know, this afternoon's webinar features Donna Boyce, Director of Recovery Programs at Solix Incorporated, who will share with us information on best practices for low-income energy assistance program oversight and management. Joining Donna today are Jean Snupkowski, Director of Government Programs at Solix, and Eric Seguin, Senior Vice President of Government Programs at Solix. But before I turn the floor over to our presenters, let me introduce the Low Income Forum on Energy to those of you who may be joining us for the first time. The Low Income Forum on Energy is a unique statewide dialogue that brings together organizations and individuals committed to addressing the challenges and opportunities facing low-income New Yorkers as they seek safe, affordable, and reliable energy. Sponsored by the New York State Public Service Commission and underwritten by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, the LIFE Dialogue encourages an interactive exchange of information and collaboration among the programs and resources that assist low-income energy consumers. Among the initiatives that LIFE supports is this monthly webinar series. The next webinar in the series will be held on Tuesday, January 20th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when Nat Treadway of the Distributed Energy Financial Group and Judith Schwartz of To The Point will examine low-income consumer decision-making in the context of current regulatory practice. Announcements about future webinars will be communicated via the web and email. In addition to the monthly webinar series, LIFE distributes a monthly electronic newsletter that provides information and resources relevant to those interested in low-income energy issues in New York State and beyond. The next newsletter is scheduled to be distributed in about 2 weeks. In cooperation with our webinars and newsletter, LIFE has expanded the low-income energy dialogue to include our organization's engagement with various aspects of online social media. We're working to provide up-to-date, real-time forums in which low-income energy stakeholders can communicate with each other and with outside networks in order to share information and connections. You can find LIFE on the LinkedIn Professional Network by logging on to LinkedIn and searching for Low Income Forum on Energy. Also, you can follow LIFE on Twitter by adding @LifeNYS to your Twitter network list. Look for information on how to join our social networking efforts in announcements and newsletters. For more information on the Low Income Forum on Energy and our initiatives, or to be included on the LIFE electronic mailing list, there are a variety of ways to connect with us. General information about LIFE can be found on our website at lifenynews.org. If you'd like to be included on our electronic distribution list, you can find a very quick web-based form at lifenys.org/signup. We're interested in hearing from you about how to best serve low-income energy communities. To that end, we've created an easy-to-use share tool. Sign on to the share tool at lifenys.org/share and give us your suggestions for newsletter articles or webinar topics. Additionally, you can give us announcements about your organization's upcoming events or initiatives, and we can share that information with the LIFE community. Finally, you can contact LIFE via our phone line at 877-NY-SMART using option number 5, or by email using lifeadministrator@nyserda.ny.gov. So now we should take care of just a few housekeeping rules pertaining to this afternoon's webinar. If you have a question for the presenters at any point during the webinar, or if you need to contact me for any reason, you can use the instant message chat function to communicate with me. In the upper right portion of your screen, you'll see an icon option labeled Chat. Click on the chat icon to activate the webinar chat function. Once you activate the chat function, you'll see the chat option appear in the lower right of your screen. In order to communicate your questions to me and to the presenters, first check to be sure that the Send To drop-down list has Host selected. Then type your question into the chat field located just below the Send to Host indicator, and finally when you click Send, I'll receive your message. We'll use this chat function to ask questions of the presenters during the webinar today. In case that there are any technical difficulties or you accidentally get logged out of the webinar environment, know that we'll be recording this afternoon's webinar, and the recording will be available on the LIFE webpage at lifenynews.org. So with those formalities out of the way, let me introduce to you today's webinar presenters. Donna Boyce joined Solix Incorporated in 2014 as the Director of Recovery Programs, where she oversees disaster recovery program operations and new initiatives. Previously, she served as the Director of Sandy Housing Recovery Programs for the Community Development Corporation of Long Island and has worked developing and managing advocacy programs designed to assist underserved and vulnerable populations. Donna has also served as the Long Island Long-Term Recovery Group Housing Subcommittee Chair and is a board member for Community Advocates and a member of the Long Island Energia Partnership, an academy dedicated to addressing the serious and multidimensional issues challenging Long Island. Donna earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Political Science from SUNY Albany and her Juris Doctorate from Georgetown University. Joining Donna, we have Jean Snapkowski. Jean is Director of Government Programs for Solix. She is responsible for the overall direction and supervision of Solix's state program operations, including more than a dozen state Universal Service Fund and Telecom Relay Service programs, Light Up Texas, and the City of Austin Customer Assistance Program. In this role, she ensures that all strategic, operational, and financial program goals are met, and she interacts with agency staff to ensure customer satisfaction and goals are achieved. Jean has been with Solix for 24 years and has more than 30 years experience within the telecom industry. Joining Donna and Jean is Eric Seguin. Eric is Senior Vice President of Government Programs for Solix. As such, he's responsible for the overall direction and supervision of government program operations. In this role, he ensures that all strategic, operational, and financial goals are met while prioritizing customer satisfaction and contractual compliance. Prior to his position at Solix, Eric was Chief of Telecommunications for the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, where he directed economic policies to ensure a competitive telecommunications market environment for the state of Oklahoma. In total, he has 22 years government relations experience and 18 years experience leading Solix program operations. Eric holds a bachelor's degree in economics and international finance from Rutgers University, a bachelor's degree in accounting from St. Leo University, and a master's of business administration and finance from the College of William and Mary. Today, Donna, Jean, and Eric will share with us information on best practices for low-income energy assistance program oversight and management. So now I'll turn the floor over to them, and they'll continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. This is Donna, and thank you very much to the Low Income Forum on Energy and NYSERDA for providing Solix this opportunity. We'd also like to say happy holidays, and thank you to all of our attendees today for your work advancing and ensuring energy assistance to low-income persons. So here's our agenda for today. I will do a very brief introduction, followed by Jean's case study on an energy assistance program for which she serves as director. Following that, Eric will provide best practices for program administration information based on a number of programs around the country that Solix administers, followed by a Solix interview, and we've left ample time for questions and answers, so please send those over to Michelle as they occur to you. Solix provides expert eligibility process solutions that improve program efficiency, accuracy, and results, which is neatly said, so this slide, the next slide, will provide a little bit of context on the volume of work that we conduct annually. So during the course of a given year, we will have 11 million customer interactions. Those will be actual customer contacts, direct contacts responding to customer issues. This will be supported with 15 million transactions, such as data transfers, emails, and financial supports. Those two support $5 billion in eligibility awards, which in turn supports $4 billion in program payments. That's sort of a broad overview of what we do. Jean will now take us through a case study for a low-income energy assistance program that Sollux administers for the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Jean?
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll speak briefly about the Light Up Texas program that we administer at Solix. We have partnered with the Public Utility Commission of Texas since 2004 to be the low-end discount administrator for the Light Up program. The Light Up program provides electric and phone discounts to eligible applicants in the state throughout the year. The telephone discount is a 12-month discount. The electric program discount is a 5-month summer program. One of the challenges that we had in starting up this program, and we continue to monitor, is being able to process large volumes of data from multiple sources. We have designed an end-to-end solution that includes developing that system and process, also developing a solution for the applicant as well. We developed one application for ease of applying. The customers can apply using one application for both programs. We also provide call center services, and we provide website support for those individuals to learn more about the program. And the program ultimately provides 1.3 million applicants with benefits of about $85 million each year combined. Given the magnitude of the dollars that I just spoke of, you can imagine that this process involves managing large volumes of data from multiple sources. Because we get those pieces of information from multiple sources, we need to be able to standardize the data to make sure that everything comes together and gives the appropriate discounts out each month to these individuals. We do receive information from self-enrollment applicants. We are able to process anywhere from an average of 10,000 applications a month to, I think at our peak, we process 60,000 applications in 1 month. We also provide or get information from the Health and Human Services Department each month, as well as the electric and telephone providers in the state provide us their files of residential customer information each month. We need to standardize this data to make sure that it is all processed correctly. One example is we use software to standardize addresses to ensure matching of records, also as well to ensure delivery of mail to these applicants. One of the new processes that we introduced last year was conducting identity verification processes. We need to validate that the individuals who are applying based on self-enrollment are indeed the individuals that they say they are on the application. So we have processes in place to do that. Once all this information comes together, then we do the matching process that ultimately feeds the information back to the telephone and electric companies and identify the customers out there who they're eligible to give the discount to. Just a real brief summary of the process. Eligibility data is provided to Sollux via 2 avenues. We receive the Health and Human Services file each month. They submit the customers that they have already qualified for various social programs such as SNAP, Medicaid, CHIP, or TANF. Then we also have the self-enrollment applications who are submitting the applicants directly to us. They're able to apply based on their income or other programs such as LIHEAP, SSI, and the free lunch program. Sollux processes all that data into one process each month and then provides an output to the providers. Then they are eligible to give those discounts to their customers on the following bill. As you know, programs such as Light Up are high visibility programs, and we need to ensure that there are controls in place to detect and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. Eligibility requirements must meet certain social services requirements. HHSC does screening of applicants that they send to us, as well as the customers who apply directly with us must meet certain criteria as well. They have to sign their application attesting to the accuracy of the data that they're providing, as well as they need to submit supporting documentation to verify the income or to support that they are on one of the other social programs. Additionally, they must renew their eligibility every 7 months if they have enrolled via self-enrollment. As long as they are on the HHSC file each month, we consider them to be still qualified. We pull all this together each month, and we are also coordinating these benefits across the providers. For example, in the Telephone Lifeline program, customers are only eligible to receive one discount, but they may, in fact, have service with one or more providers. So we're constantly looking at the data to ensure that the applicant is only getting one discount from one of those providers. The next slide just gives you a pictorial of the end-to-end process that we have in place. It starts with the customer contact. We provide avenues for the customer to call the call center or go to a website. They can call the call center and request that an application be provided to them, or they can just get general information about the program. Likewise, with the website, they can go to the website and get the application and information as well. Those applications are sent to Solix via various methods of either mail, telephone, fax, or via fax or internet. The reviewers then pull that information together, and we manage the review staff by the volumes that we have coming in. And as I've mentioned, that does vary significantly across the various months. We get the Health and Human Services file each month, and we get the telephone and electric providers files of residential customers each month. These various pieces of data come in to our system, and we begin the matching process, which ultimately results in the discount files out to the electric and telephone providers. Then they're able to give the discounts out to their customers who have qualified. And just as an example, for Texas, the customers that are eligible for the telephone discount can receive up to $12.75 off of their telephone bill, and the electric discount can range from anywhere from a low of 10% up to this past discount period we gave out or qualified applicants to receive an 82% discount during this past summer month. Finally, just to recap some of the large numbers that we're dealing with this month and annually. Our processes, we're working with about 120 million customer records. These records are coming from about 130 telephone companies and 70 electric providers each month. Over the course of the year, we receive about 72 million records from and services. And finally, all of these records and the matching processes and review processes that we have in place result in about 11 million discounts annually to these telephone and electric recipients. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and he'll speak a little more about our best practices.
Oh, thank you, Jean. Jean just provided a good overview of a specific program that we administer, which is the centralized Lifeline discount program in Texas. But I'm going to step back and kind of look at the array of programs that we administer as a company and identify some of the best practices that we've learned through administering such an array of programs. If you look in the left-hand column, the state and local programs, we administer 14 telecom, universal service, and/or Lifeline funds and/or TRS funds. Most of these are driven in terms of eligibility on either low income or the ability to serve a specific area. We also administer grant programs, such as for the Florida Department of Health, where individuals may apply for grants to do scientific research. So that's more of the traditional grant administration role, if you think of it that way. We've also done some work recently with Hurricane Sandy. So for New York City, New York State, and New Jersey, we've administered a range of programs, either end-to-end or pieces of the eligibility processes, And within these, we were helping individuals who were adversely affected by the events of the storms, and or in some cases they're prioritized based on income levels in terms of awarding the funds. So all of this, there's a consistent application of our eligibility review process and often prioritizing income as a basis for awards. A couple of the federal programs that we currently administer or have in the past is the Rural Health Care Program, which provides internet access for rural health care facilities to have similar technology levels as those in urban areas. And the largest program that we administer is the federal E-rate program, and that provides internet access for schools and libraries throughout the country. Recently, just this year, the annual funding for that program has been increased from $2.4 billion a year to a proposed level of $4.9 billion for next year. So that's a lot of funds that are being awarded to schools and libraries throughout the country. When we talk about some of the centralized programs that we administer, Jean went through the case study about LIDA, and we do something similar for the City of Austin, Austin Energy, their municipal utility. So they're both discounted energy programs for low-income individuals. And we do some centralized programs that are similar to that on the telecom side for Arkansas and the District of Columbia as well. And in the past few years, we've gotten involved with some public-private initiatives based on our corporate resume and experience. We've been working with Connect to Compete, and then some private companies like Comcast and Time Warner Cable, et cetera, to administer discounted broadband programs. And most of these programs they award eligibility for access to either discounted broadband and discounted PCs based on participation or eligibility for the National School Lunch Program, discounted lunch program. So again, most of the eligibility criteria are driven by income, either household income or geographic area income levels. So when you look at a summary of some of the skills that we've identified that really drive, the key success drivers for administering these types of programs, there are certain skills that we found that run across all of them. So again, communication with applicants, this is always a key to success. Clear communication early, up front, and then as well as throughout the process in terms of what are the program designs and goals, what are the eligibility requirements, what type of documentation is required to submit. It's really key to communicate as often and early as possible because that eliminates much of the confusion. It sets expectations and goals up front, and it allows for a smoother process for those who are involved with it. Systems are always a key driver of a successful program. We try to design systems that are flexible, that can be easily adapted and modified, and quickly deployed. So we use agile development technologies and approaches, and we have core platforms that we can put out and provide solutions, but they can be modified for or customized for specific situations as well. The majority of the programs that we do administer are driven by statutes or regulatory requirements, so being compliant with those statutes is key, and that's something that's really ingrained into our corporate DNA. And with that, and very closely connected, is building in controls and checks to make sure that waste, fraud, and abuse is minimized and or eliminated, or if you can't always do that, we also perform audits after the fact, so that should some money get out the door that shouldn't have, we can still perform some checks after the fact and pull some of that back. Again, the core of what we do around all of this is the eligibility piece. We have people who are highly trained and experienced in this area, and what we do to ensure that they really understand the programs they work on, we even have certifications for specific programs. So if you're a reviewer for the E-rate program, for example, you go through a class, training, and you're tested before you can actually work on those types of applications. We found that model is very effective in ensuring a high-quality output and in efficiency. So if you want to look at a summary of what some of the best practices around administering these types of programs, the keys that we find that are most important to our customers are ensuring that we can launch quickly, so speed of delivery. With that, having established platforms and technology solutions is key, but being able to customize for specific scenarios is something else that we always find is important. So with all of that, deploying the solution to intake the applications is key, but you also need to make sure that you can track data. Everyone needs to know what's happening at any point in given time. Most of our systems are now driven by real-time reporting capabilities, but then also making sure that you can track and evaluate the success of the program and the process. Those are all things that we take care to assure that we design into the results. People, as I mentioned, we've got some very experienced eligibility reviewers. We've also expanded and built out our capabilities so that we can handle the front end of the process and those early applicant communications that I talked about, as well as making sure that we can stay in touch with applicants throughout the process and keep our customers informed. So the people that you have involved have to understand the aspects and the perspectives of all the participants and stakeholders within the process. Compliance is built into everything that we do, whether it's training of people or design of systems and processes, so that runs across everything and really serves as a check to make sure that the systems function as they should and the processes are driving the proper outcomes. And last but not least is the data collection and storage and data integrity processes, because what we collect is often very sensitive, private, confidential information. We have to ensure that the transmission of that information is secure, and then obviously once we have it in our possession, that the storage, retention, and even the destruction of that data is handled appropriately. Getting into a few of the specifics that drive the best practices, I've mentioned the open communication. So again, as stakeholders, applicants, and everyone involved within the process in driving the solution, the communication is early, it's often, it's regular, and it's consistent, and it's in line with the program objectives. That's the key to make sure that everyone's on the same page and you've level set expectations right from the beginning. The security of the tools, we use a number of technology solutions, so we're not really tied to any one specific technology. We're somewhat technology neutral, but again, in ensuring that it's achieving the objectives of the customers and the desires. And a big part of that is the two-way transfer of security of data. Gene mentioned with LIDA that we're accepting information from HHSC, from applicants, and then also providing output files to the electric providers and service providers. So all of those transmissions have to be secure and in consistent formats, and that makes everyone's life easier. So if you think about generally best practices today, what you want to do if you can is drive all the processes to automation if possible. So what we've done is deploy technology throughout our processes in terms of the intake, the review, as well as the reporting. But one thing that we've also done is ensured that we always allow for multiple intake methods, and whether it's paper, electronic, website, even fax, whatever may be necessary to ensure that the applicants have as many avenues as possible. But again, driving people towards technology and automation in order to create a more efficient process. All the checks and balances that we have are designed throughout, as I've mentioned. Very program-specific training for the individuals and the reviewers and the managers and the quality assurance and quality control individuals who work on the programs all get specific training, which is very important because it doesn't help to have any of this work quickly if you're not having good quality output. And then again, the goal is to achieve the desired results, which is at the top of the spectrum always. Within stakeholder management, I mentioned that you want to have open and regular communication. A lot of this is driven by success when you have early discussions and client involvement in the design of the program. The only way for us to be successful in administering a solution is knowing for sure what the program goals and objectives are. So that can only occur through an interactive dialogue with the customer and getting a clear understanding of the applicant experience that's desired. On the customer service side, what we try to do is, again, provide as many avenues as possible for customers to communicate with us. Many of these programs have a lot of requirements, whether they're federal, state, or programmatic. and there are a lot of questions on what needs to be submitted, who is eligible, what kind of documentation needs to be provided, and in what formats, et cetera. So we're always there to answer those questions right up front. We do try to communicate in program documents before the applicants even have to reach out to us. But again, offering multiple channels and being there, we have 24/7 support if needed. So we have a number of ways for applicants to communicate with us. Just to highlight an example of what we've done recently with some of the Hurricane Sandy relief work in New York and New Jersey, you know, we've gone so far as conducting town meetings. We've been present at intake centers that are geographically dispersed, allows applicants easier access on their part. And then we've even deployed some mobile technology so that we could go out and be on site with applicants, whether it's residents or business owners, and help them fill out an application and even submit it, assuming they had all the required documentation. We can do it right there on the spot for them, and they never have to leave their residence or place of business. And again, around that with the operations staff, the initial training is key, but we also conduct ongoing training, evaluations, quality control. We make adjustments to our processes as we learn more and go through it. Cross-training is key because these programs often require ramping up and down in terms of resources and staffing. And again, the more you can standardize processes, the more that you can interchange and add resources quickly to meet client needs. One thing that we've certainly found across all programs is that they do evolve, and they really should. As some programs that we administer have been in place for 15 years and some as little as a few months. But the goal of a regulatory program or a discount program or a program that provides general public benefits is that it should evolve as you learn lessons over time. So some of the feedback comes from the client, some comes from applicant experience. We're always happy to hear how it works from their side. So then we go back and change and adapt to those needs. And again, we're constantly evaluating, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually, the results of the program. Are we achieving the desired results? And what do we need to do to change and to ensure that we do? So again, it's really important to take any lessons learned and continually evolve with the program. One thing I mentioned is about the checks and balances that we designed into the system about, and again, primarily is to ensure that we minimize waste, fraud, and abuse. But just having internal controls, a lot of what we do also entails confidential information as well as financial information. Donna mentioned earlier that we make decisions that drive about $5 billion annually in awards, but we also disperse actually $4 billion in total to these recipients. So not every program involves a disbursement on our part, but in total, we do manage the flow and or disbursement of about $4 billion per year. So with that, we have to have all the associated controls within the processes, the financial controls, and the sign-offs amongst individuals. And these controls also ensure not just the duties of the individuals, but they ensure that the processes and systems are functioning as they should. A key to any good process like this is documenting. Applicants have to submit their documentation. A key for us ensuring that decisions are consistent and correct is documentation of the process by any individual reviewer as well. This allows for the next level of management to do a quality control check on decisions that are made, as well as an external QA/QC group to say decisions are consistent, they're compliant with the rules, and that they're neutral and impartial. That allows us to do all of that, and then ultimately a key driver is to ensure that the process is auditable. Everything that we do is really driven by regulatory requirements, so we're often audited by outside auditing firms in addition to state and federal auditing agencies, whether it's the Attorney General's office, Comptroller's office, the IG, et cetera. So all of our processes can be easily audited, and we're very experienced with that. On the data collection aspect, again, every program is driven by the data provided by the applicants and or the service providers who have to either input or receive data. So the security of the systems and the flow of the data back and forth it's integral to ensuring that you can create a solution that can be controlled on both sides. And then again, once you have the data, how you can analyze it and report on it, and the ease of creating business analysis, business intelligence tools, managerial dashboards that can show you real time what was the activity for a given day, week, month, and where are we relative to goals and metrics. All of that is key and is driven by your data collection and data analysis tools. And I've touched on the network security and data security and transmission. One thing that is key too is to ensure that you have disaster recovery and business continuity plans in place that are tested regularly. So it shows that you haven't just walked through the intellectual aspect of the process, but you actually test them and ensure that they do work in the event that you need them. I mentioned a little bit about the fact that a definite key to moving towards a best practice is moving away from paper and into automation. Again, we always allow for that paper manual process if needed, but this slide shows you some of the benefits if you move away from manual into automated routines, the benefits of such. For example, one traditional method of submitting data and transferring data is using spreadsheets and email. Well, that's definitely not a best practice. There's not security around email and attachments. So if you can move to an online reporting system that's fully integrated with security, requires login and user ID and access, again, you've taken it up another level to ensure that you're really following a best practice around data security. And given the nature of the information involved with these programs, that is very important. I've touched on a majority of the automated process enhancements, but again, what automation allows you to do is it even takes you into a more secure environment. Electronic data can be stored and managed, and again, as I mentioned, destroyed when needed, in an easier fashion than paper forms. It's easier to control the location and the ownership at any given time, who may or may not make changes to such information, and then how to control it and get rid of it as appropriate. So again, most of these individual best practice drive towards the automation benefits. So when you apply some of these lessons learned, a key lesson obviously is that we're all trying to do more with less. We all face that challenge every day, and if you can apply some best practices, move more towards a greater use of technology and centralized approaches, you can maximize your resource utilization, and you can deliver efficient, effective, and consistent results. And that's very important. And the consistency there is not just on making sure that it's standardized processes, but you want consistent outcomes for your applicants and your stakeholders. So this really helps you drive to that. Minimizing waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, there are a combination of funding sources, whether it's state and federal monies or assessments on utilities, if you will. So in either case, you're always trying to minimize and make sure that the money is used as intended. And then again, all stakeholders will benefit from programs that are more efficiently managed. And if everyone understands the rules of the game right up front, you'll create a solution that's more successful, that's well documented and supportable through audits. Just a couple quick slides that talk a little bit about Sollux. We've hit on some of these areas through our discussion, but I would say this kind of describes the spectrum of services that we can provide, and in most cases we may provide an end-to-end solution from program design all the way through reporting and compliance, but we also provide consulting services where we may just consult on how do you design a program, or how do we implement it, or how do you just implement the eligibility review piece. So, and in many cases we're actually doing the customer care and outreach. So really, whether it's the initial design conceptually into the operationalization or the reporting and analysis pieces, we really either do a turnkey solution or plug and play components within that. competencies of our team spread throughout the organization. You could probably guess some of these based on what we've said that we do, but very strong project management skills, eligibility determination, again, the integrity, program integrity and compliance reviews, and auditing, if you will. And then really the financial management, billing collection, cash management, and the financial reporting, again, are key components of we have in the organization to effectively evaluate these programs. And when you look at the complexity of the programs that we administer, you know, on the left side of this slide shows typical eligibility criteria. Sometimes it's straight regulations or legislation. Many times it's income-based, or we do cost reasonableness reviews of expenses that are submitted, or program eligibility, as Jean went into with the Texas LIDA program. But when you look at some of the work that we do for lifeline programs that we administer, we may look at a 1 to 2 page application and maybe 1 page of supporting documentation to get to our decisions. And you can see the award there is about $120 a year or $10 a month, all the way up through a rural health care application or a research grant application. And ultimately, if you look at something like the New York City E-rate application, which is several thousand pages, applying for a couple $100 million worth of funding for a given year. That one takes a village, an entire team to review that type of an application. But you can see the complexity runs the gamut, just as the individual functions do as well. So just to wrap up, this kind of summarizes, you know, the various things that we may bring to the table based on our experience. But we'd like to open up for any questions that you may have at this point, and we'd be happy to field them.
Okay, thanks very much to the Solix team for their presentation. We already have a few questions that came in, but we'd like to open up the web environment for folks to submit more questions. And you can do that, webinar attendees, by using the chat icon in the upper right portion of your screen to activate the chat function. And then once you do that, you'll see the chat option appear in the lower right portion of your screen. And in order to communicate your question, just type the question into the chat field located just below the Send to Host indicator. Click Send, and we'll receive your question, and I'll communicate those questions to our presenters today. So the first few questions came in during Jean's part of the presentation, and Solix, you know, please address these in any way you'd like. But our attendee is wondering if you are monitoring annual repeat program participants, including their relative energy insecurity and or their energy usage, to determine if this is the most effective use of program funds.
Can you just repeat that, please?
Sure. It looks like the question is getting at how you're monitoring annual repeat program participants. If you use energy usage data to determine if the folks that are getting the services are in the neighborhoods who need the services the most.
I would say the eligibility for a given time period is not really driven by usage per se. It's really driven on their income level and who is kind of basically in the need for the discounted services. So we do know who is eligible on a repeat basis, even month to month. But 1 year's eligibility for the relative to the prior year, we wouldn't necessarily rotate it based on the usage per se. It's really driven on, are they eligible based on income criteria or program participation, which is, again, driven by income.
Okay, and a follow-up question to that, which you addressed somewhat, but we'll go ahead with it, is are you using the eligibility profile to determine exactly who is and who is not participating? How are you using this discrete information to maximize enrollment?
See, now that's a great question, and that's the reverse of what we normally do. In the state of Texas, at least, they've allowed applicants to come in and basically apply based on their need, as opposed to identifying those applicants who may be eligible and reaching out to them and enrolling them. Early on, there was an automatic enrollment process in Texas, so there was something akin to that. and they've kind of moved away from that a little bit. But in the case of Austin Energy, you actually have a waiting list of applicants who are eligible. So we do know there is a base of people who are eligible who are not yet on the program rolls because of funding caps. So it's a little bit of a mix, but there's probably more you could do if you wanted to reach out. You probably do have access to those individuals and could reach out to them for eligibility. But we found that the program participation is pretty high based on their initiatives.
Okay. And this question just came in, and it's related to the discussion we're having. How does the Department of Social Services release information to Sollux without having a signed release from their clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we actually we administer a number of programs, and we're often trying to get direct data access with agencies, and it is a challenge at times. But in this case, what happens is when individuals apply for a program with Texas Health and Human Services, they're basically allowing HHSC to say, when you give us your information, you're going to be potentially eligible for a number of programs. So we will process you for all that you're eligible to the extent that overlap is not a problem. So within that application process, they know that they will be outreached, if you will, for the Texas LIDA program, and if they're eligible, we will reach out and either automatically enroll them based on the specific information, or reach out to them and let them fill out an application if more information is needed.
Okay. We have a more local question that came in during Eric's section of the presentation. Does Sollux administer any programs available in Northern New York?
The work we're doing in New York right now is really related to Hurricane Sandy. We've done some work, dependent eligibility verification audits in central New York, but we're not administering any other programs in New York right now, but certainly open to that discussion.
Okay. And a more technical question, what measures does Sollux take to detect or prevent fraud and abuse?
So the application processes have a lot of requirements, and we train our reviewers on these requirements, which is no small task to start with. What we then do is any review that's performed, we ensure that there's a secondary set of eyes, if you will, on a review. So in most cases, a decision gets at least 2 looks. And in many other cases, there's additional reviews by an independent quality assurance, quality control team. So there's independent checks within the process, and what we also do is we have software that identifies addresses of individuals. So we know if somebody's applying, an individual is applying multiple times from the same residence. We screen that out. We have identity ID verification software, which also you can set certain criteria within that helps you within a certain probability, which is probably greater than 95%, know that the person whose name and information is on an application is really the person they say they are, based on some pretty involved analysis behind the scenes by the software.
Okay.
So there's systematic checks, there are process controls, and then there are also things after the fact. In many of the programs we administer after people are awarded discounts or benefits, we then go out and audit and do spot checks to, again, verify that they were who they said they were.
Okay. And let's switch gears for just a minute here and talk a little bit more about the technology aspects. What platform is Sollux using for the transition from paper to automation? We've
got a number of in-house platforms that we've developed. Much of that is designed on Microsoft.NET technology. But what we've done recently in terms of administering some of the grants and some of the additional Hurricane Sandy work that we've been doing is deploying Salesforce solutions. and some of it's done in Microsoft Dynamics. So what we try to do is be somewhat technology neutral. If someone's looking for a specific solution that we've already got designed, then great. But other than that, we try to make sure that we utilize the technology that is most desired by the individual program or customer. So we can work in a number of environments, but the majority of what we do on our own is Microsoft-driven Salesforce and our, again, Dynamics.
Okay. And another question about use of technology, a little bit different this time. Can you elaborate on your use of mobile technologies that you mentioned during the presentation? This is an issue of interest to the frontline workers here in New York State.
Absolutely. So what we've done in a number of scenarios, starting with even some of the disaster work back with the flooding in Nashville, Hurricane Katrina, we've deployed teams out to the field with, in those cases, they were using laptops with web-based software. What we've done recently is deployed technologies which are even mobile device, iPad-driven. So again, we can be deployed into social services agencies and or local disaster centers, and on an iPad, have the application be accessible, again, web-based, and individuals can give us the information that's needed. We can use the iPad to take pictures of the supporting documentation, attach that file and submit it, and it's done. So it's a combination of mobile technologies that really work on just about any mobile device, all the way down to the typical phone, but really best suited for an iPad type device.
Okay, great. Thanks for addressing that. One of our attendees would like to hear more about your work with Hurricane Sandy relief. Can you speak more about how your program ties into Hurricane Sandy relief? What stakeholders do you work with? Do you work with city agencies, community-based organizations?
Yes, so in New Jersey, we manage the entire application intake process and decision all the way out to disbursement on behalf of the Economic Development Authority. In New York City, we're working with the Build It Back program, which is focused on the residential applications. So there we're working with the New York City HRO, and we interface often directly with the applicants who come into the centers, have questions and what to submit. And we're doing coordination of benefits reviews, verification of benefits, eligibility, private insurance verifications. Again, all of this to make sure that people are eligible, that they don't receive duplicate benefits, and that we get them the money that is due to them as quickly as possible, all within the understanding that there are a lot of complex program requirements. And for New York State, we did some similar work on the residential program on behalf of the governor's office there.
Okay. We do have time for a few more questions. I have a final question lined up, but I'd like to encourage our attendees, if you have any final questions for our presenters, please submit those questions now. Okay, our attendees are interested in, from your perspective, from your team's perspective, what are some of the best or most effective low-income energy programs nationally?
That's a very good question. We primarily have worked at the state level or the local level, so we haven't been involved with any of the federal programs, other than the information that they feed in terms of eligibility for some of the more local programs. So we haven't been directly involved at the federal level with the effectiveness of their programs. We're certainly familiar with them, but I don't think we could speak to
Sure. Great. Does anybody have a final question for our Sollux presenters? Sollux team, do you have any concluding thoughts?
No, we appreciate the opportunity to be here and meet with everybody and speak to you about our experience, and look forward to anything else that we can convey to the group, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Great, thanks so much, Eric. If there are no further questions, we're going to go ahead and conclude this afternoon's webinar. On behalf of the Low Income Forum on Energy and the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, I'd like to thank Donna, Jean, and Eric at Solix for sharing their time and expertise with us. This is certainly an extremely valuable contribution to the LIFE dialogue and programming. I'd also like to remind our web participants that we will send a follow-up email containing a link to the recording of the webinar for you to review and share with your networks. And that email will also include resources to obtain more information about the work that Solix is doing. LIFE will continue our monthly webinar series on Tuesday, January 20th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when Nat Treadway of the Distributed Energy Financial Group and Judith Schwartz of To The Point will examine low-income customer decision-making in the context of current regulatory practices. Announcements about future webinars will be communicated via the web and email. If you'd like further information about the Low-Income Forum on Energy, please visit our website at lifenynews.org, and please consider using our other online resources to join the distribution list or communicate your needs to us. I'd like to say thank you again to the Solix team for the presentation, and thank you to webinar attendees for participating in the LIFE monthly webinar series. Have a great afternoon, everyone.